Hello! So today we're going to be looking at the startup procedure for the Dornier Do X in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So this was released yesterday and I did a very quick first look video at it and didn't really go into any depth of seeing what we could do around the aircraft, so we're going to put that right today. I've been writing up the procedures and referring to the documentation that comes with it. If you didn't know there was documentation for it, it's in the Microsoft Flight Simulator. The One Store folder. So if you go and look on your computer and you go and look in your community folder, if you go up a level to the Flight Simulator folder itself, the packages folder as it calls it, so where your community folder lives, alongside it there's an official folder. If you go down into there and into One Store, you will see there is a Microsoft Aircraft Dornier Do X or Do X folder. And inside there's a documentation folder, and there you get the PDFs for the aircraft, and they are very, very good. There's lots of history, lots of configuration explanations, and lots of talk about, what does what around the aircraft. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the manual startup procedure for the aircraft, and the first thing you'll notice is I've put the plane on the ground, which is no good for a flying boat. The reason I've done that is the only way you can get Flight Simulator to start this aircraft cold and dark, as far as I'm aware, is to put it on the apron of an airport, which means that nothing will be powered up. So we are at Friedrichshafen in Germany, and we're going to go and put ourselves onto Lake Constance over there. So we'll press Y to engage slew mode, hold F4 on, so we'll just hold F4, lift ourselves into the air, we'll move ourselves, turn ourselves towards the lake, and then press 8 on the keypad to push ourselves over to the lake, and then we'll press F1 to lower ourselves back down onto the water, and then we'll press Y to remove. Slew again. So now we are floating on the water. Okay, and we're going nowhere at the moment. So first things first, we're going to go inside the aircraft. So first thing to do is to check your controller configuration. So what I have done is gone into control options, and I've got a profile for my throttle quadrant called 6 engines, which is a bit of a misnomer. If we go and look in here, and we look in power management, all I've actually got is the throttle axis set to my joystick throttle, or one of my throttles, which means all of the engines will respond to that one throttle axis. Okay, so that's really all I've done, and I've made sure in the sensitivities that I've got straight lines on all of the throttle axes. Okay, so what do we do to get started with this thing? We press Control and 1, which turns us around and puts us further back down the cockpit, and we drop this switch at the top right of this panel, which switches the power on, and you can see the voltage needle jumping up there. Okay, so then we go and press Control 4, which takes us to the generator section at the back of the aircraft. We turn the voltmeter to on, so that's this tiny little switch at the top right, so we flick it to the right. Then we go to the generator switches. So these are the ones on the left in the middle. So we've got the first one. You can see the names of them actually. If you look over the top, you've got generator 1, generator 2, and that means auxiliary. So you've got auxiliary generator 1 and auxiliary generator 2. And you've got a horn. So we'll go and turn on the generators and the auxiliary generators, and should we try the horn out? It's very cool, isn't it? Didn't need to do that, that's not on the checklist. So then after doing that, we go back to the pilot, so we press F on the keyboard to come back up to the pilot. And we're going to go and move our view around a little bit. So I'm going to use the cursor keys to do this in the simulator. We're going to open this panel. So the switch on the far left of this panel is the anchor. So if we press it and jump outside, you will see the anchor is dropping into the water. Okay, and we'll just leave it like that now. The other controls here are the towboat. So if I was to remove the anchor, so if we do that, we'll see the anchor come back up. If I turn the towboat on, this connects the towboat on the left switch. We go and have a look. Here comes the towboat, magically out of nowhere. And if you watch it, it will maneuver itself in front of the aircraft. and then it will attach a tow rope. So once you have done that, that is the speed of the towboat, that is the direction of the rudder on the towboat, and that disconnects the towboat. So I guess we can do it just by, yeah, if we click the left hand button, it just vanishes the towboat again. Okay, so I am going to put the anchor back in the water, so you can see the anchor's just dropping back into the water. Otherwise, as we fire the engines up, we'll start to drift forwards. Okay, so anchor is in the water. So then we go Control 3 to go to the lighting panel. So we are going to go and switch on the bottom right switch, which is the position lights. Okay, or as we would normally know them, the strobe lights. Then we're going to go to the fuel valves section, so Control 4. I'm following a checklist here, by the way. I'll put it in the notes of the video, and I'll also put a highlighted comment about where you can download the checklist from. So Control 4 brings us to the fuel valve section. We're going to turn on all of the engine fuel valves to open. So the leftmost 3 switches here and here, and the rightmost 3 switches here and here, those are the 12 engine fuel valves. Okay, if you look very closely, you can actually see the names of them and you can translate them. There's various other switches as well we're not going to get into for the moment. So now we're going to go back to the back of the aircraft and we're going to start configuring the engineering around the engines. So the first thing we need to do is the clutch levers. So all of these knobs with rounded ends have to go down. And we'll do that on both sides. So we've just turned about face. So we've got 6 engines on one side of the engineering and 6 on the other. Okay, so we're going to come back this way. So that's the clutch levers. So then we're going to go through starting the engines. I'm reading my notes as I'm doing this, so this is me validating my checklist as much as anything. So we go to the Control 6 again, which will straighten us back up on that view. So we turn on the nebulizer, as they call it, which is this switch in the middle. We press the ignition guards. So if I just lower us down using the keyboard to do that, there are these levers here. We have to push them against the panel. So push them forwards away from yourself. We do that both sides again. Once you have done that, you can click on the middle roundel part of it and it will switch over to the left side of the gauges. So this is the ignition system. So these are the guards for the ignition. So that's the guard and this is the actual ignition. So to the left means it's actually operative. In the proper instructions for the aircraft, it does them one at a time, so you go through this whole process 12 times. I'm shortcutting it because it lets us, basically. So I've tried it out and I've gone for everything we can to shortcut this process. Okay, so then the magnetos. We're going to flick all the magnetos clockwise. There's one behind here as well. And we'll do the same on this side. All of the magnetos go clockwise. And then we start playing with the engine selector switches and the compressed air. So the left-hand compressed air will correspond with the first 3 engines. The right-hand compressed air will be the next 3 engines. So we'll go compressed air on, engine selector to number 1, and then you hold the start lever on. If we go and look outside, we can see that happening and the engine has come up to speed. So we just work our way through them now. So engine number 2, start lever. So we can just listen to it. Engine number 3. And then we can pull this back, turn off that compressed air, turn the other compressed air on, engine number 4. engine number 5. And engine number 6. So that's all of one side of the aircraft done. So once you've done that, the compressed air can come off and the nebulizer can come off. And the guards can be switched back off. The ignition for those engines has done its job, so you can just click those tabs at the bottom again and it switches the ignition off. And you can look outside and you can see those 6 engines are happily ticking over now. Okay, so we turn ourselves around and we do the same again. So we've already moved all of the ignition guards over. We've already done the magnetos. So all remains to be done is to switch the nebulizer on, compressed air, engine selector, and then start. Then the next engine. Lower ourselves down a little bit so we can see this more easily. And the next engine. Okay, so we pull that back off, take the compressed air out, put the other compressor on, go for engine number 10. Number 11. And finally engine number 12. Okay, so selector can come back to off, compressed air can come off, and we can switch off the ignition for all of the engines, so it will just go back to the normal run mode. You will also notice there is a gauge we didn't touch. This is auto start. This will do all the bank of engines for you, so you don't have to fiddle with any of the knobs. That's an auto starter. Also, these are fuel shut-off valves. They are open by default, but you can close them. So it's just handy that in its kind of cold and dark state they're already open, so we don't have to relentlessly go along rolling the mouse wheel on them to open them up. So clockwise is open, anti-clockwise is closed. Okay, so when we've done that, we are preparing to taxi. So we go back to the pilot section and we go and raise the anchor again. So we click that switch and we should start actually moving forwards because the aircraft has some forward. Yeah, you can see the horizon, the things on the bank are moving past already. We're already going forwards. Okay, so something that's worth noting as well, so if we press F again, there's a big wheel here. This is the water rudder. So if we roll it, you can see we're going right, or we can turn left gently. So it's just worth knowing that's there. Okay, so while we're just taxiing out away from the shore, we'll go to the lighting section again, and we're going to go and look at the light switches we need to switch on. So basically the collision light and the landing light are down there at the bottom. Okay, so just above here is the altimeter, which is the the barometric pressure altimeter, and you can roll the you'd see this as a Coleman window in a modern one, but it's on the surface in this one. But obviously you can press B just as you normally can in the simulator to adjust it. Okay, so back in the pilot seat and we're ready to go. So I'm just going to lean forwards a bit. We've got the indicated airspeed here. We need to be doing 150 knots for takeoff. Also, this altitude is in kilometers, so that's 1,000 meters above sea level. Yeah, that's 2,000 meters above sea level. So you have to multiply that in your head, just multiply it by 3 for the feet, so that's going to be 3,000 feet or thereabouts. Okay, so I'm not going to do too much here other than just get us off the water. So I'm going to push the throttles forwards. have a little look at it as we accelerate, because it's very impressive to watch, isn't it? See it starting to plane. So coming up through 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, and don't be gentle about using the elevators, give it full elevator. And after a couple of skips it should take off, usually around 165 I've noticed. There we go. Oh, it's nearly off, and it's come off the ground now. So we're in the air. So we've suddenly got the vertical speed indicator has come to life. We've got a turn coordinator. So there we go, we're in the air and flying. It's very cool, isn't it? But that's all I really wanted to cover today, was just how to get the aircraft started by hand. There's obviously a world more to do with this, to do with operating the radios. They are simulated, so you can go and play with them. But I'll keep that for another video, so this one doesn't go on for too long. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed that. I've put a link to the checklist in the notes of the video. See you again soon.